Well, my name is Jim Caseman, and we're talking about my life's history, and Kathleen a little bit later. There were some tapes she made before she died. And we have just gone through this thing with Tisha since January 1st, 74, in Canada at the Bible school. And one's just before January, the other one just towards spring, where she would quit breathing and go into whatever, convulsions or I forget. And we thought she had died, and of course Kathleen was able to, as a nurse, figure out she still had a pulse. And it's 22 miles to Rocky Mountain House, so it's a little over a half hour. And they still couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. So we're about a month of school left, so we decided we better get her back to the States and see her doctor down there. And so we took off. And we arrived in my hometown then that spring, 74. And one doctor, like I said at the end of the last session, one country doctor, little town, well, we had probably 1,000 people in Wishick. They had a small hospital. And he probably, I think he did another town or two. He kind of did as well, but he lived in Wishick. And it didn't take him 5 minutes. He said she had rheumatic fever. Now, apparently, it starts with scarlet fever or something else, and then it had moved into another part of her body. I don't know what. He tried to explain it. And of course, then Crippled Children's Society got involved, and they said that she'd have to be on medication the rest of her life. Apparently, there'd been some damage done or something. And of course, I looked it up, in the just the other day in Google, and they said rheumatic fever is a heart disease that leads to heart surgery and or possibly death. And it starts with strep throat or scarlet fever, and then it turns into rheumatic fever. So that's what Google told me just the other day. I was just curious. And so then we ended up there. Now, we just came back from Canada, and I've always wanted to go on active duty again. And so I have applied in North Dakota then. I had formerly been company commander of the Headquarters and Headquarters Company, which housed all the battalion officers in Minot, North Dakota. And while I was still, this is before the Bible school, and I just thought that would be okay. So then, of course, we ended up in the Bible school in Canada. And then I was qualified. I had done all my command and general staff courses and all of that sort of stuff. So I was actually overqualified, so there's no problem getting the job. And so we put earnest money down for a house. And then I was sent to Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indianapolis, Indiana, for a 10-week course. And I would become then also branch qualified as public information officer. And then while I was in Fort Benjamin Harrison, all my mail was forwarded. And as a result of, remember those charismatic meetings we used to go to? Well, they were selling books of different authors, and they were collecting signatures and our addresses and putting us on the mailing address of these different authors. One of them being Kenneth E. Hagin. Now, I bought 2 of his books on demons at a charismatic meeting, and I realized real quickly this man doesn't have any idea of what's going on spiritually, and especially casting out devils, in the charismatic movement, because I didn't know Brother Hagin. And I just, those 2 books of his I read. And then I just went and got distracted. But anyway, so then our book during the charismatic movement, when it come to casting out devils, it was a book called Pigs in the Parlor. And so you would have a demon behind everything. If you were falling asleep in church, you had a sleeping spirit demon. If you're losing your hair, you would have had a hair-losing demon. If you had problems with your eyes, you had a demon that you had to cast out of your eyes. It was absolutely ridiculous, but I didn't know it was because I'm in the charismatic movement with all this crazy doctrine, which I don't even know it's crazy because I had nobody to teach me how to rightly divide the Bible. Never read it and just started reading it. And so then here comes Brother Hagin's magazine. Well, I'd already decided he knew nothing because of those 2 small booklets I bought of his. But like all the other magazines and mail, junk mail, I had a habit of flipping through them real fast. I don't know what I was looking for. I still do that, I'm so sad to say. I thumb through it real fast. Don't know what I'm looking for. But this page in Brother Hagin's magazine, I don't know whether it fell open or what, but there's this ad, Rhema Bible Training Center. Now, I didn't have any idea that this was a charter class, that at camp meeting that summer, he announced they're going to have a Bible school. And so they had to get some students together real quick because they're going to start right there in the fall. I didn't know any of that. I just sent for an application. I don't know if I got one back to fill in. All I know is almost immediately I've been accepted as a student in their Bible school. All right. I didn't know anything about faith. And Kathleen said, well, she loved the military and all of that. And I said, well, we get back to the Bismarck, we can just tell them we can't come. We'll just cancel. We'll call Rhema and tell them we're not coming. Well, then we ended up back in Bismarck, and come to find out I did not get the job. Well, that was a surprise. And now it was many years later in the ministry and everything, long time. A friend of mine who was also in the North Dakota Air National Guard, he worked full-time at Frayne Barracks, the headquarters there for 5th Army for us in North Dakota. And he says, Jim, would you like to know why you did not get that job way back there in 1970, what would that have been again, 4? I says, no, why? Well, what happened when I was still company commander of the headquarters company in Minot, where we housed all the battalion officers, one day I, along with all the battalion officers, we had to make a trip to Bismarck headquarters and meet with General Malhouse for a special meeting. Well, we got there, and I don't know what happened, because all 5 of us, I believe it was, we were in General Malhouse's office, but where did the other 4 all of a sudden disappear? And here I am alone in the office with General Malhouse. And of course, I'm newly born again. This is 74. Got born again in 72. Turned on to God, getting everybody saved that I can find. And I thought this was the Lord. Hey, here's an opportunity to witness to the general and get him saved. Well, he didn't accept the Lord. And I found out years later that's why he was determined I would not be hired, because they didn't need a preacher on staff. Well, anyway, it's turned out to be God anyway. Because if he had hired me, my whole life would have been different. Probably wouldn't be alive today, getting involved in the military full time. But anyway, God used it. I only had plan B left. I had been accepted to this Bible school in Tulsa. Now, my father, he never interfered with anything. My parents didn't. They were watching me, and I was just bouncing all over the place, one job to another and all of this. But he did manage to say this, Jim, maybe you should, because he knew I graduated from the university, had a 4-year degree. He says, maybe you should get a job teaching. He said it kind of softly and, And of course, I said to my dad, really, I am working for one employer, and that's Jesus, and he tells me where to go. And God told me to go to Tulsa. Now, really, I lied because I didn't know God's voice for nothing. Didn't know how to be led by the Spirit. And I just didn't know how to be led by the Spirit. So then we packed up, U-Haul truck, got everything out of storage, and headed for Tulsa. Well, so much for that episode. We'll see you later. Bless you.